The world was slowly gliding into another world war in 1936, the year in which my father, Gregorio Adan y Diaz, was naturalized as a citizen of the United States of America. Fueled by nationalist myths, drawn by the magnetic riches of imperialism, and determined to settle old grudges, the dozen or so men who controlled the fate of the world drove it heedlessly toward mass death and the horrors of modern warfare. But in Seattle, Washington, a veil of pacific coexistence covered the grim face of the future. Soldiers of the aggressive Japanese Empire marched in the American 4th of July holiday parade that year. There was another soldier marching in that parade that day, that year. He was my father, Technical Sergeant Diaz, marching with the 6th Engineers Army Band, stationed at Fort Lawton in Seattle. Not quite 1 year earlier, in August 1935, Sergeant Diaz had married Violet Constance Franco, the widowed mother of a young girl. My father adopted Nancy. My other sister, Dolores Francis, was born on July 11, 1937, at the Fort Lawton Army Hospital. It had been more than 12 years since my father crossed the border from Mexico into the United States. Although he had immediately filed a declaration of intention to seek citizenship, he had not pursued that intention. Now, perhaps he was inspired by the responsibilities of marriage and fatherhood. Or another motive could have been his discomfort over the mass deportations of Mexicans, including some Mexican-American United States citizens, in the darkest days of the Great Depression. For whatever reason, on November 9th, 1936, Gregorio Adan was issued his naturalization papers. On the same day, he changed his legal name to Gregory Adam Diaz. In the course of the naturalization process, Gregory Diaz renounced his allegiance to any other nation, and more specifically, to the Republic of Mexico, of which he claimed to be a natural-born citizen. But that was not true. He had actually been born in the Canary Islands. He was a citizen of Spain, not of Mexico. It was a fabrication into which he was now locked, and with which he would live for the rest of his life.
Someday, when I'm awfully low, when the world is cold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight.
Even as my parents settled into the joys of a long and fruitful marriage, storm flags of war and deep division were being raised in the United States and around the world. The German-American Bund was founded in 1936. The Spanish Civil War also began in 1936. The American ambassador to Spain later called that war a dress rehearsal for the Second World War. Another war began in 1937. Japan invaded China. Many analysts mark that invasion as the beginning of the Second World War. In December of that year, Japanese forces bombed and sank a clearly marked American naval vessel, the Panay, on the Yangtze River. In spite of widespread condemnation of its invasion of China, Japan continued to mask its ultimate intentions behind a facade of diplomatic maneuvering. For example, Japan sent the battleship Ashigara to participate in a naval review marking the coronation of King George VI of England in May 1937. The Ashigara then sailed to Germany, where it was ceremoniously welcomed. Japanese troops and a Japanese marching band paraded down the streets of Berlin. Japanese naval officers joined Nazi naval officials in laying a memorial wreath at the German monument to the fallen of the First World War, the war that had been deemed the war to end all wars. Opinion in the United States was divided as these drums of war beat their fatal cadences. But a rising majority understood that the intentions of the Axis forming among Germany, Japan, and Italy could not be deterred by pacifism or isolationism. Rearming and taking sides in defense of freedom and decency became the goal of this growing majority. One of the consequences of the growth of the United States Armed Forces was the need for more military band leaders. Gregory Adam Diaz passed the examination to become a band leader. He was promoted to the rank of warrant officer in 1940 and posted to lead the 6th Cavalry Band in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. And thus it was that on July 20th, 1940, I was born in an Army hospital on a horse cavalry post. We would not, however, see much of my father for the next 6 years. The Army had begun field maneuvers, training and learning how to fight in a new and upcoming war. In the next episode of Fire and Ice, we'll follow my father along his journey to an historic American victory